Yo, what's going on? It's your man Brandon Carter. I'm here with Abel James, host of the Fat Burning Diet and author of, the Fat Burning Man podcast and and author of The Wild Diet. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, man. So, tell me more about I'm about to get into podcasting. That's why you're here. You're one of the first guests, man. So, tell me more about your podcast. So, what tips? I'm trying to learn, man. I just want to learn from you.
Well, man, one of the coolest things about having a podcast and your own blog and your own website and stuff like that is that you can just tell it like it is. There aren't people who are like limiting your creative control. There aren't gatekeepers to go through, contracts to sign or whatever. It's like there are people out there and they're interested in the topic. You can just talk to them. And so one of the things that I really enjoy is having people who aren't necessarily, big in the space or whatever, or big celebrities. I have them too. But I've also had my mom on the show and like my wife on the show. And sometimes it's just me talking. And so you can turn this into something that's very open, very real, and very authentic. So that's what I like about it.
Nah, I get it because I started with YouTube, and my YouTube became somewhat popular. So now we're just branching out and doing like this is going to be on YouTube and on a podcast, but I'm used to the more visual. So, but I know podcast is a different medium, and I'm excited about entering, man. So it's good. That's why we have on such great podcasters like you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, well, I'm happy to help.
No problem, man. So what's up with so you're the Fat Burning Diet, man? Tell us about, the
Fat Burning Man concept.
Yeah, Fat Burning Man. I'm sorry. What's your podcast? Basically, it's about burning fat, right? So can you tell us some of your, or just fitness in general, or being in touch with working out in a more human kind of way, right?
Yeah.
Earlier. So how can you explain some of your principles and some of the stuff that some of the protocols and things that you adhere to?
Yeah, of course. So basically, if you go back in time about 5-10 years, I was living a very different lifestyle. I was, I've always been a musician, but I had a day job as well, working in an office. And for the first time in my life, I got really good health insurance. And so I went to my doctor and I'm just like, well, my family has a history of putting on weight as we age, high triglycerides, thyroid problems, and a bunch of other fairly common disorders and problems that a lot of people experience. And so he put me on a really low fat diet to make sure that I wouldn't have those problems. Low fat, almost zero dietary cholesterol, told me to exercise all the time. And so
what happened, but I want to hear you say
it. Well, in trying to prevent all of those things to happen in my body, because before that I was pretty athletic growing up and always in good health, never really worried about diet from that perspective. I just ate what I craved kind of, and a lot of times that was fattier foods. So once I ratcheted that down and ate super low fat foods, ate like diet food and stuff like that, I started to put on fat and my face started to get all puffy. And all of a sudden I looked like I was 40 years old and I was 24, And so it was an intense experience because a lot of other things happened in my life at the same time. My apartment building burned down. I lost everything. And I know you're a musician and I am as well. So I lost all my instruments, the albums that I was working on, everything. And so all I had was basically my reflection in the mirror, this fat guy who looked like he was in his 40s. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. I have to get this under control.
Wow. All right. So what did you do? It was like I'm in Fight Club.
Yeah.
It's called the Fight Club diet. You can still
Fight Club diet. I like that.
Yeah, people that make money. That's a little marketing tip. What happened? How'd you change everything?
So I changed it by basically going back to eating real food again and not following some overly prescriptive diet, but basically breaking it apart and looking into what some of the people who had achieved fantastic physiques were able to eat and the way that they exercise. And so one really cool thing that happened to me back in the day was my older brother, he was, 150, 155 pounds, just string bean. And he watched Pumping Iron for the first time. And after that, during the next like 3 to 6 months, he started eating in a completely different way. And a lot of it was higher fat, higher protein, lower carb, or cycling carbs, like ketogenic cycling of carbs and that kind of thing. And he bulked up to well over 200 pounds of just solid muscle.
50 pounds. And your first year, man, you can gain a lot.
Yeah, you can do some incredible things. So me seeing that and looking at what he was eating, eating bacon and, full fat, cream cheese and stuff. I'm like, how in the world does that work? And so I looked into the physiology of it and did a lot of research into kind of these alternative old school diets, bulking with eggs as opposed to using crazy supplements or, doing the low fat, starving yourself thing. And then, so once I kind of like turned up the fat again and started eating a lot of like coconut, avocados, bringing bacon back into the mix, having chocolate and stuff like that. And then cycling carbs, like eating sweet potatoes every once in a while, as opposed to eating low fat things that would be like white rice, right? Or other things that are lower in nutrients. I focused on high nutrient foods. And then I started experimenting with intermittent fasting and doing outside workouts, getting back to what it's like to be humans. And so a lot of people, if they know me from Fat Burning Man, they know I'm big into kind of like the paleo approach, but not super paleo, because I allow some dairy. And I really like to bring fun back into the mix when it comes to eating real food. My wife Allison is just an incredible cook. So we eat really, really well. And one of the biggest things I like to show people and teach people is that you can have a lot of fun being healthy and being fit. It's mostly about mindset compared to trying to starve yourself to death and be miserable all the time. You really can have fun doing this.
I got you. So you started adhering to this different kind of diet style, then you got better results than the traditional low fat diets, which sounds like your diet.
What's that?
I'm sorry. It sounds like your diet's like pretty similar to mine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Tell me about yours.
All right, man. I've been doing intermittent fasting for like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I do the kind of the lean gains protocol. 8 years. 8-hour feeding window with a 16-hour fast. Mm-hmm. I eat between hours from 3 to 11 most of the time. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, around there. And
sure.
And then days I don't work out, I don't eat carbohydrates at all. Mm-hmm. Is that a similar approach? Because I heard you say carb cycling. That's what I do.
Very similar. Yeah. Martin at Lean Gains, he's a big fan of cheesecake too. And intermittent fasting is something that works really, really well for a lot of guys, for sure. And so that's something that I've been doing for years. And I've experimented with different ways of doing it. But I think, like you said, putting the carbs on the days that you're doing like a more intense or a heavier lift workout, and then scaling back the carbs and not overdoing it, or maybe even fasting a little bit more on your more sedentary days, your rest days, is perfect. So that's been working really well for me for the past few years. Certainly a lot better than other stuff I've tried.
Yo, it's cool. It's awesome because it sounds like we're doing pretty much the same thing. You ever do 24-hour fast? Like the Eat Stop Eat style?
Yeah, for sure. I had Brad Pilon on my show. God, it must have been like 2 years ago at this point, but really cool dude. And for me, sometimes, especially if I'm like in the airport or whatever, and there's just no good food around, I will do a longer fast, like 24 hours. But mostly it's just about following your own hunger cues. Some days you just want to feast. You want to have tons of food, and maybe you worked out the day before, maybe you worked out that day, but your body's just screaming for it. So I try to follow that. And then other days, for whatever reason, you're full of energy, you're drinking plenty of water or whatever, and you don't really need that much food. So I just like following that and seeing where it goes. And what I believe is that your body really wants to be in like perfect athletic shape. And so as long as you're healthy, you're eating the right foods that are full of nutrients, and you're getting plenty of that, you're drinking plenty of water, you're filling up on electrolytes, and you're doing some sort of strength training so you're strong, and some sort of like cardio based, usually high intensity activity to make sure that you're like fast, then you're just going to be a beast.
That's the only kind of cardio I do for the most part. Like every once in a while I do a long walk if I have like an injury or something. I do long, but pretty much I do intermittent, cardio, high intensity cardio workouts. Like I do a lot of, like sometimes like we do a lot of Tabata stuff. So we get it done, the cardio done.
Did that this morning.
Like knock them right after the end of resistance training, or maybe like in the daytime, like. But I post those on my channel every day, man. So yeah, it's not like we're covering the same cloth, man. How old are you?
I like it. I'm 30, about to be 31 this next week.
Oh, next week, all right. Happy birthday. I'm 32. Yeah, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. We're like the same guy.
We're twins.
Separated at birth.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So do you train people in this, or do you have it, or is it just like you just talk about it on your blog, or?
Yeah, it's been cool because basically I started out helping people kind of like small scale, but I come at this more as an author, and I studied brain science back in the day. And one of the coolest things, I think being a musician really helped with this is I realized that it's the same effort to play for one person as it is to play for 1 million people. Right? Like you're kind of doing the same thing. And so that's why I found so much power in doing the podcast and doing the blog, because the amount of people who are able to benefit from that information is so huge. So I still, when I help people like on a one-on-one basis, I pretty much do it all for free. We have an online coaching community that we use too to basically give people more hands-on help. But I really like the idea of helping people from afar, like basically using technology like we are right now. Obviously, it's not the same as sitting next to you and having this conversation, but it's like 70% there, 80% there in some cases, right? Like you can connect with people, you can teach them a lot of things doing this while I'm in, Tennessee, and while you're in New York. It's amazing. So I try to use that for all it's worth.
Yeah, especially now, man, like Skype, like we were doing Google Hangout right now. I remember a few years ago, I remember I had my old guitar teacher, like we was trying to do stuff through Skype when it first came out, and it wasn't the same.
What was that?
It wasn't the same. It just wasn't the he would hear what I played like way after or something. So but now it's like the technology started to catch up to the point where
it's crazy. I'm doing this with a cell connection because we're up in the mountains right now, and it can do video no problem. It's amazing.
Are you using your cell phone?
I'm using a MiFi, those little Verizon. It's right over there by the window, just in case. Yeah, it's incredible. It's more reliable than most internet these days.
Man, all right, maybe this is kind of self-indulgent, man, but could you give me any tips on podcasting?
Yeah. What do you want to know?
I don't know. Like what we're gonna start it. We're recording all the stuff now. So like this is whenever this comes out, like recording now, but I don't know when we'll post it because the team is working on it. But like what about like the launch, or like just the protocol of getting acquiring fans and users and stuff?
I think it goes back to what I was saying before. It's all about making it real and resonate with people, because I think we're up against reality shows on TV and like fitness stuff coming out of traditional media, and so the ability for people to just go and listen to a podcast that's about something that they want to listen to and isn't too marketing heavy. It doesn't have to be hypey. It can just be a real conversation with people. It's all about being exactly who you are and getting in touch with the people who resonate with that just naturally. So I think there's this there's a tendency for a lot of people who kind of get into podcasting or get into YouTube or get into blogging or whatever to kind of adopt this personality that isn't totally them, right?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
And so this is all about kind of turning that on its head and being like 100% who you are. Now, let me just say, for me personally, if you meet me and we're going out for drinks or hanging out or whatever, I might have a little bit of a potty mouth sometimes. So it's important to know who's on the other end. And that's another big piece of, like, as you're building it up, I ask my fans and my followers, my listeners, I'm like, what do you guys want to hear about? Do you want me to, bite my tongue sometimes and not say exactly what I was going to say and be positive and happy? Or do you want me to be totally 100% authentic, like Joe Rogan or whatever, and just kind of make it more frat boy? And for me, the people who are listening to my stuff, they almost always say, like 80-90% of them, they're like, listen, we listen with our families. And we don't want you to be swearing. We don't want potty mouth or whatever. We like that you're doing that Captain America thing where basically you're being good old boy and keeping it accessible to people who don't want to hear all the junk, because there's enough of that, right? There's enough of like the gym talk or whatever. But you know, if you're following, if the people who are into what you're doing is totally into just off the walls, almost like a comedy show, you can afford to drop some F-bombs and be more real.
Oh, you don't want to say F-bomb here, man. On my podcast, you can say fuck bomb. It's all good. we dropping fuck bombs over here, not X bomb. Like, my audience, I know like they've grown.
That's awesome, man.
I'll put it like that. My audience has grown accustomed.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So you know what your listeners want. You know what the people who are following you want, and it's different too. I'm
sorry, if I'm ever on your podcast, I'll make sure I'm,
we'll bleep you out anyway.
Yeah, because like even when I'm walking, like I'm big on that authenticity and being who I am, just because I don't know. I've always tried to do that to a fault, and I know it turns people off. Even still, if I'm at a family restaurant or if I walk past some kids, if I know there's a family listening to some children, then just out of respect, I won't curse. I won't, I use some decorum. And I get what you're saying. Like, if you find out there's families watching, listening to your podcast, then yeah, man, it's just being respectful, So I definitely appreciate that, and I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. So just know who's on the other end and talk to them.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean? It's amazing how many people don't do that. They just kind of do their own thing, and it's separated from sharing an experience. As a musician, you get that, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're shredding in the front row. Yeah. If people aren't into it and they don't care, then you shouldn't be shredding. You should be playing something that's like going straight to their heart, right?
Exactly. Like, you don't want to be self-indulgent, Exactly. You want to be like you want to add value. No matter what you do, really adding value, I feel like it's good. So if you're just shredding, doing some old technical, and like only the hardcore classical, only the hardcore guitarists, even feel it, then maybe you're not, the audience is not really feeling it as much as.
Yeah.
All right. Again, what about your workout protocol? Because we talked about the diet. It's pretty. I mean, I like everything I heard about your diet. What's your workout like?
Nice. Yeah. So I do almost all my workouts outside, which I really enjoy. Outside in the sun. I try to make it really fun for myself. It sounds like we do pretty similar things. I do high intensity exercise. Like this morning, I did sprints outside, which is like Tabatas. I call it the wild workout. 7 minutes long. Basically, you warm up with 60 seconds of getting your heart pumping a little bit. Then you do like Tabatas, 20 seconds of high intensity exercise. Usually, I'll do like hill sprints or bicycle sprints in some cases. If I'm inside or if I'm in a hotel or whatever, I'll do burpees. So 20 seconds, super high intensity, 10 seconds rest, repeat that 10 times. And at the end, the last set, I do 10 times.
All right.
Because I'm an overachiever, right? But then if you're not smoked by the end of that, you're doing it wrong. And so on the last one, I basically just keep going until I can't go anymore. And so that's like my super high intensity workout to get up to that VO2 max to make sure that I'm staying in really good cardiovascular shape and competitive in athletics, right? Because like doing that long cardio that's not that intense isn't really going to help with that. It's not really going to help with much at all. Your overall well-being and your brain health, it'll help, but it's not going to like burn a lot of calories. And I think a lot of people chain themselves to a treadmill and kind of get the wrong idea about what that's doing. So I never really work on treadmills, and I don't spend much time in the gym, but I do a strength training workout at least once a week. And that'll generally be with 2 dumbbells. And I'm talking about squats, deadlifts, old school stuff, and pull-ups. I broke my foot last year, which basically made it so I couldn't do any of my normal workouts that I know work. And so I was like, what am I going to do? Fat burning man can't work out, right? And so I decided to just turn everything upside down and start focusing on like acrobatic type stuff. So if I broke my foot, I guess I could do handstand push-ups. And so I started doing handstand push-ups, fingertip push-ups, kind of getting back into old school self-defense type practices. I do Krav Maga and used to do karate. So I like being functionally fit and functionally athletic. You know what I mean? So focusing on being strong all over. And then I'm a big fan of doing really short workouts. Like I said, some of the days it'll be just doing like 30 pull-ups with different grips a couple of times, maybe 3 times. And as long as you're maintaining your strength, you're kind of maintaining your health, right? And it's a lot easier to maintain it than it is to build it. So I like getting big results for less time.
I got you. Yeah, Arnold used to do something like that. We would do like pull-ups, different grips, like just almost like you go to, I don't remember, it was similar. It sounded, reminded me, I don't remember the exact protocol. Yeah, we do similar. I do a lot of outside working out outside. Definitely, it's different because I live, in New York. So during the winter time, it's like that kind of stops. But I do a lot of try to work out outside much. I actually put my hand doing working out in the pull-up bars in Santa Monica.
Oh, no.
It's all good. It happens. And so I do a lot of that stuff: pull-ups, muscle-ups, handstand push-ups. My record is 9 without freestanding. My record is 9.
Nice. Yeah.
But now I can
it's a lot harder freestanding, I'll tell you what.
freestanding. So it took me a long time to get that. And then, man. So, but I definitely work out with weights too. Like I definitely work out with weights at least, probably every other day. Probably every other day. I would like with real like weights. I have dumbbells at home, but mine go up to 100 pounds each. So I work out with those a lot. Or else, but a lot of the same things, just different. It's different, but it's a lot of similarities, man.
Yeah, for sure. Because certain things work and other things don't. Right?
Exactly. Some stuff. And now I'm thinking I was about to edit myself. Listen, some shit works.
I'm being too well behaved right now, man.
What do you say?
I'm being too well behaved and I'm rubbing off on you, I think.
Yeah. I'm matching your energy, but that's cool. That's cool. Maybe I need that sometimes. I need to get out of my comfort zone, which is just, blaring all the time for no reason.
I'll put a beer in me and I'll go back to that.
That's good, man. All right, so tell people where they can find your where they can get in touch with you, where they can you find your books, your podcast, website, where just tell people where they can reach you, man. Fat burning.
Easiest place to find me is going to fatburningman.com. And if you sign up for my email list, you get free videos, you get workouts. A lot of the stuff is about really freaking good food and workouts that are compressed for time and really, really effective. So that's at fatburningman.com. That's also the name of my podcast, so you can check that out. And the name of my book, which is available everywhere, is called The Wild Diet. And we've got some cheesecake in there too.
Oh, that cheesecake thing. Yeah, man. Real quick, tell us about the cheesecake thing. Why are you so interested?
It depends on which kind you're talking about because there are so many, right? We've got the paleo cheesecake, which doesn't have cheese in it, right? Like a lot of the vegan people will be into that sort of thing. So it's interesting. My wife doesn't do that well with dairy. And so we have to come up with like a dairy-free version of most of the stuff that we're doing. And I'm a dairy fiend. I love eating, heavy whipping cream and cream cheese and stuff like that. So usually with cheesecakes, we'll cover them with berries like blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, something like that. Also a big fan of putting some nut butters in the cheesecake or some chocolate in there, making it a little bit more like savory and rich. And then the trick is the thing that makes it way less bad for you is not putting in high fructose corn syrup, preservatives, all the junk that you find when you go out to a chain restaurant or when you get it from Costco or whatever. When I'm talking about making this stuff at home, and when you make it with real food, when you sneak real food into desserts, and we'll make cookies that are made out of mostly coconut with some like high cocoa content chocolate and not that much sugar in it. When it's made with real food, you don't have to feel so guilty about indulging in this stuff, and it's not terrible for you. You're getting like real stuff. So that's why we're big fans of eating luxuriously, because we're also eating real food at the same time.
I got you. And if you do intermittent fasting, your likelihood of you going is less likely that you'll be in a caloric surplus. You can still maintain a deficit.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can be anabolic without putting on fat at the same time, because you're not force feeding yourself all day. You're just kind of refeeding, especially after a strength training workout. So that works really well.
Yeah, definitely. That's the best time to eat stuff like that.
Totally.
Yeah, man. All right, man. That's great, man. I kind of wanted to talk more about cheesecake, but maybe next time we'll get it. You have cheesecake recipes on your site and stuff?
Yeah, you can find lots of cheesecake at fatburningman.com.
Sounds good, man. All right, well, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, man.